Ladies and gentlemen, imagine a child born into a world where the sound of waves should mean peace, but instead, it becomes the rhythm of war. Imagine a boy whose hands were meant to build, not kill, yet fate sharpened them into blades. This is not just the story of a warrior. This is the story of Thorfinn, from an innocent child to a true warrior, one of the most powerful transformations in Japanese anime history. Thorfinn's story begins far away from battlefields, bloodshed, and hatred. He is born in a quiet corner of the world, in Iceland, where life moves slowly and nature feels eternal. As a child, Thorfinn is curious, energetic, and innocent in the purest sense. He runs through fields, plays near the sea, and dreams of adventure without understanding what adventure truly costs. For him, the world is still simple. There are stories, family, and the excitement of the unknown. This innocence is the foundation of his character, because it shows us who Thorfinn was before violence shaped him. At the center of Thorfinn's childhood stands his father, Thors. To the world, Thors is known as a legendary warrior, a man feared on the battlefield. But to Thorfinn, he is simply a kind, calm, and protective father. Thors represents a powerful contradiction, someone who understands violence deeply yet has completely rejected it. He believes that true strength is not found in killing or domination, but in restraint and responsibility. Thors teaches Thorfinn lessons that feel almost out of place in a Viking world, lessons about compassion, dignity, and the value of human life. One of the most important teachings Thors gives Thorfinn is the idea that you have no enemies. For a child raised among warriors and tales of conquest, this concept is difficult to grasp. Thorfinn listens, but he does not truly understand. To him, enemies are part of stories and games. He cannot yet imagine a world where hatred becomes personal, where loss turns into obsession. This gap between understanding and experience becomes crucial later, because it shows how unprepared Thorfinn is for what fate has planned for him. Thorfinn's innocence is also reflected in how he views war. He sees it as something glorious, exciting, and heroic. Like many children influenced by stories and legends, he believes warriors are heroes and battles are paths to honor. He wants to follow his father, to see distant lands, to prove himself. In his mind, war is an adventure, not a tragedy. This romanticized view of violence makes the collapse of his innocence even more painful, because the contrast between expectation and reality is brutal. The turning point of Thorfinn's childhood comes when Thors is forced back into the world of war. Even then, Thors tries to shield his son from violence. He does not glorify battle. He does not encourage revenge. Instead, he tries to show Thorfinn what it means to stand firm without hatred. But the world Thors abandoned refuses to let him go. The encounter with Askeladd and the mercenaries becomes the moment where Thorfinn's innocence is destroyed forever. Witnessing his father's death is not just a traumatic event, it is the violent end of Thorfinn's childhood. In a single moment, the lessons of peace clash with the reality of cruelty. Thorfinn watches a man who believed in life and restraint be cut down by deception and violence. There is no honor, no fairness, no heroism, only loss. This moment scars him deeply, planting the seed of rage that will dominate his life for years to come. From that point onward, the innocent child ceases to exist. But what makes this stage of Thorfinn's life so powerful is that the innocence never truly disappears, it becomes buried. The pain he carries is not just anger, it is confusion. He cannot reconcile his father's teachings with the reality he witnessed. If his father was right about having no enemies, then why did the world take him away? This unresolved conflict becomes the emotional core of Thorfinn's journey. In the context of Japanese anime storytelling, Thorfinn's early life represents a classic but deeply human theme, the loss of innocence in a cruel world. Unlike stories where protagonists are born into suffering, Thorfinn begins with peace. This makes his fall more tragic and more relatable. His childhood reminds us that no one is born a warrior fueled by hatred. Those warriors are created by circumstances, trauma, and loss. This first phase of Thorfinn's life is essential because it defines what he loses before he becomes what the world forces him to be. His innocence, his father's words, and his simple dreams all form the emotional contrast needed for his later transformation. Without this beginning, Thorfinn's pain would not feel as heavy, and his eventual growth would not feel as meaningful. His story does not start with violence, it starts with peace, making everything that follows infinitely more tragic and powerful. After the loss of his father, Thorfinn's life is no longer guided by curiosity or joy, it is driven by a single, burning purpose. Revenge becomes the axis around which his entire existence revolves. The child who once dreamed of adventure now lives only to kill one man, Askeladd. This shift marks the second phase of Thorfinn's life, where innocence is replaced by obsession, and growth is twisted into survival. In the world of Vinland Saga, this transformation is not heroic, it is deeply tragic. Thorfinn follows Askeladd not because he admires him, but because hatred chains him there. He becomes part of the very group that destroyed his family, fighting alongside mercenaries who live for plunder, blood, and chaos. This irony is brutal. To get close enough to kill Askeladd, Thorfinn must become a tool of violence himself. Every battle he fights, every enemy he kills, pushes him further away from the person his father hoped he would become. What defines this period of Thorfinn's life is emotional emptiness. He does not fight for glory, wealth, or loyalty. He fights to earn duels, small chances to challenge Askeladd directly. These duels are not about honor, they are bargaining chips. Thorfinn trades his life and body for the right to attempt revenge, again and again. Each loss deepens his frustration. Each victory feels hollow. The goal remains unreachable, and the rage never fades. As Thorfinn grows into a skilled warrior, his body sharpens while his soul erodes. He becomes fast, ruthless, and efficient, capable of surviving battlefields that consume grown men. Yet, he never smiles. He never celebrates. He exists in a constant state of tension, fueled by anger that never resolves. In many anime, this stage would be portrayed as a rise to power, but Vinland Saga subverts that expectation. Thorfinn's strength does not bring him freedom, it traps him. Askeladd's presence during this phase is especially complex. He is both the villain and the twisted guide in Thorfinn's life. While Thorfinn hates him with every fiber of his being, Askeladd understands him better than anyone else. He recognizes Thorfinn's emptiness and exploits it, using the boy's rage as a weapon. At times, Askeladd even pushes Thorfinn to survive, not out of kindness, but because Thorfinn serves a purpose. This creates a disturbing dynamic where the man Thorfinn wants to kill also becomes the reason he continues to live. This period also shows how revenge isolates Thorfinn from the world. He forms no real friendships. He does not bond with his fellow warriors. Everyone around him is either an obstacle or a means to an end. Even when others laugh, dream, or plan for the future, Thorfinn remains disconnected. His future ends at Askeladd's death, he cannot imagine anything beyond that. In psychological terms, his identity is frozen in trauma. In the broader context of Japanese anime, this arc challenges the idea that revenge leads to closure or justice. Thorfinn's journey proves the opposite. The more he chases revenge, the more he loses himself. His father's teachings echo faintly in the background, but Thorfinn is unable, or unwilling, to listen. He believes that killing Askeladd will heal him, not realizing that the damage goes far deeper. The most tragic element of this phase is that Thorfinn never truly grows emotionally, even as time passes. Years go by, yet his inner world remains stuck in the moment of his father's death. He does not process grief, he weaponizes it. This emotional stagnation is why his life feels empty despite his strength. He is alive, but not living. This second keynote of Thorfinn's life represents the cost of unchecked hatred. It shows a young man who becomes powerful without becoming wise, skilled without becoming whole. His revenge-driven existence is not a path forward, it is a prison. And when that prison finally collapses, Thorfinn is left with nothing but the weight of everything he has done, setting the stage for his most painful and transformative chapter yet. When Thorfinn's revenge is finally taken away from him, his world collapses in silence rather than flames. The third phase of his life begins not with a battle, but with emptiness. Askeladd's death does not bring victory, relief, or closure. Instead, it leaves Thorfinn stripped of purpose, identity, and direction. For the first time since childhood, he wakes up with nothing to chase. This moment marks the true breaking point of his character, where the cost of violence becomes impossible to ignore. Thorfinn is reduced from a feared warrior to a slave, a narrative choice that is deeply symbolic. In Japanese anime, power loss often leads to growth, and Vinland Saga uses this transition to dismantle everything Thorfinn once believed about strength. As a slave on Ketil's farm, Thorfinn is no longer defined by his speed or killing ability. He is defined by his labor, his silence, and his guilt. The battlefield is replaced by farmland, and the constant noise of war is replaced by long, quiet days that force him to think. For the first time, Thorfinn is confronted with the faces of those he has killed, not as enemies, but as memories. Nightmares haunt him, filled with countless bodies reaching up from the ground, accusing him without words. These visions represent the emotional weight he avoided for years. When revenge drove him forward, he had no time to reflect. Now, with nothing to distract him, the consequences of his actions demand to be acknowledged. This internal torment is far more painful than any wound he ever suffered in battle. During this phase, Thorfinn meets Einar, another slave who serves as a mirror to what Thorfinn could have been. Einar is kind, expressive, and deeply human, despite his suffering. Their growing bond is slow and fragile, built not on shared ambition, but on shared pain. Through Einar, Thorfinn begins to understand something revolutionary. Violence is not strength, and survival does not require cruelty. This realization does not come easily. It challenges everything Thorfinn believed kept him alive. What defines this keynote is responsibility. Thorfinn no longer blames the world, fate, or Askeladd alone for his actions. He accepts that he chose violence, and that those choices shaped who he became. In anime storytelling, this is a rare and powerful shift. Many characters seek redemption through one grand act. Thorfinn seeks it through restraint, humility, and change. He does not ask to be forgiven, he decides to become better. The farmland arc transforms Thorfinn from a weapon into a person. He learns the value of creation over destruction, of nurturing life instead of taking it. Farming becomes a form of atonement, a way to give back to a world he only ever took from. Each seed planted is symbolic, a quiet rebellion against his past. This third phase is where Thorfinn truly begins his journey toward becoming a true warrior. Not one who wins fights, but one who refuses them. His vow to never harm another person again is not born from weakness, but from understanding. He realizes that real strength is the courage to live without violence, even in a violent world. In Vinland Saga, this arc redefines heroism. Thorfinn's growth is not explosive or dramatic, it is slow, painful, and deeply human. And in that quiet transformation, he finally begins to honor his father's words, setting his feet on a path not of revenge, but of meaning. Thorfinn's final phase is not about escaping his past, but about walking forward while carrying it with honesty. By this stage of his life, he is no longer the innocent child from Iceland, nor the rage-driven warrior consumed by revenge. He becomes something far rarer in Japanese anime, a man who chooses peace in a world that rewards violence. This is where Thorfinn's transformation into a true warrior is completed, not through conquest, but through conviction. After gaining his freedom, Thorfinn does not seek glory, status, or power. Instead, he seeks Vinland, a land without slavery, war, or hatred. This dream is not an escape fantasy, it is a response to everything he has lived through. Vinland represents responsibility. Thorfinn understands that peace is not something that magically exists somewhere else, it must be built, protected, and constantly defended through restraint. His goal is no longer personal. It is generational. He wants to create a future where children never have to grow up holding a blade the way he did. What makes this phase so powerful is Thorfinn's absolute rejection of violence as a solution. He carries no sword, not because he cannot fight, but because he refuses to. This choice is tested repeatedly. Enemies provoke him, threaten him, and mock his ideals. In a typical anime narrative, this would lead to a dramatic power-up. Instead, Vinland Saga does something braver. Thorfinn stands his ground without striking back. His strength is expressed through self-control, negotiation, and sacrifice. This does not mean Thorfinn is naive. He fully understands how cruel the world is. He has seen war, slavery, betrayal, and death. His pacifism is not ignorance, it is informed resistance. Every time he chooses words over fists, he is actively breaking the cycle of violence that destroyed his childhood. This is what separates him from other warriors. He does not fight to win, he fights to prevent fighting itself. Thorfinn's leadership also evolves in this phase. People follow him not because they fear him, but because they trust him. His honesty, humility, and willingness to take responsibility inspire others more deeply than intimidation ever could. When conflicts arise, he places himself in harm's way to protect both sides, showing that peace requires courage equal to any battlefield bravery. In anime, legacy is often defined by strength or legend. Thorfinn defines his legacy through impact. He does not want songs sung about him. He wants fewer graves in the world. His dream of Vinland is fragile and uncertain, but that uncertainty does not stop him. He accepts that peace is not guaranteed, only effort is. By the end of his journey, Thorfinn embodies his father Thor's words completely. A true warrior does not need a sword. This idea, once abstract, becomes Thorfinn's lived truth. His life stands as proof that growth is possible even after immense wrongdoing, and that choosing peace is not surrender. It is the hardest path of all. Thorfinn's story concludes not with an ending, but with a direction. And in that direction lies the most powerful message of Vinland Saga. Real strength is the courage to change, and real victory is breaking the cycle so no one else has to suffer the way you did.